Okay, so before I start going in on my talk, I kind of want to just kind of feel out the room, what type of vibe we have, what type of students we have here. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Okay, so my first question is, and answer honestly, don't worry, you're not getting graded for this. How many of you in this room have attended an event recently, either this semester or last semester, that touches on a culture, a race, a demographic different from your own? Raise your hands. Okay, I like to see it, Great. How many of you have attended a meeting of a student organization, kind of the same like groupings that I just asked, that's different from culture, race, or demographic of your own? Okay, a little less hands. Okay. So I like to fill this out. And so I guess for a couple of years, I've been asking that question of why. So I am the president of the MSUM Black Student Union, and I run it with a bunch of other amazing members that are here tonight. And I also coordinate the Campus Feminist Organization. And so something as an organizer that we always kind of ask is okay, how do we get students to come? How do we engage students? We'll have these amazing people coming through to our school. We'll have these awesome programs. And then we only have the same students, the same demographics coming to our school, especially for a school that's so big on diversity and inclusion. We pretty much market it. Everybody that goes here knows that we market it. And so it's kind of okay, so how come we don't get these students to come to these events? Especially, again, a school that, our second biggest population is our international students. So they're right there. We have rich culture, rich experiences, so much that we can dive in, especially being from rural Minnesota. So, hi, I'm from here too. So there's so much that we can dive in, but we don't see anybody other than the groups of students that we usually see. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the demographic of students that are predominantly white. We don't see them. So we start asking okay, why? Why aren't they coming? Don't we advertise? We do advertise. Don't we, go into classes and tell teachers, offer your students credits? We do all these things, but we still don't see anybody. So I had a talk with someone one time where I was digging behind this whole thing of why don't they come? And I remembered a conversation I had in high school with my best friend. So I grew up in East Grand Forks, Minnesota. Whoop, whoop, if you know where it's at. Hey, okay. For those of y'all that don't know where it's at, you might know where Grand Forks, North Dakota is at. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so Grand Forks, North Dakota is kind of like Fargo, how we have Fargo and Moorhead. So Grand Forks, East Grand Forks. East Grand Forks, the Minnesota side. Always been a Minnesotan, stay on my side. So I grew up, it's further up north, and it's kind of like the northwest corner, yeah. And so I grew up in East Grand Forks, Minnesota, predominantly rural, white Minnesota, very, very small town. Beep. And one time I had a conversation during my senior year with one of my friends where I was trying to get them to come to this party with me because I'm West African, so I'm Liberian. And we throw the littest parties. My grad party's coming up, y'all all invited. So we throw the littest parties, super festive, super cultural. And so I was inviting some of my friends and everything. And the thing that everybody would always say back to me is it okay if I come? Because majority of them are white. And I'm yeah, you're my friend. And they're okay. They're am I gonna be weird? And I'm no, you're my friend. And we're also in a predominantly white area, my family's gonna assume. And so they'd always be okay, is there something I should say? Is there something I should wear? So I started noticing this anxiety, this fear of kind of being in my atmosphere, of connecting with more people that look like me, of being in a space that makes them the minority. And I was that's so interesting. Because I don't really think, and I don't think they think either, I don't think they ever worry when I walk into the classroom I wonder if Ponny's okay. She's the only black one in here. Do we need to talk to her? Do we have to hold her hand? Do we have to tell everybody else in the room, oh, it's cool, this is my friend? Do they think that when we go to the grocery store? Do they think that when we go to the bank? Do they think that when we go on field trips? Do they ever think oh my God, she probably wakes up and thinks, how am I gonna go to school today? Everyone's so different. And you know what, I'm probably not gonna go to school today because I just can't do that. No. And a lot of students of color, 4 and 2, we all kind of have that where it's a reality where I started realizing I never have that because I can't have that. I can't say, well, that class that I'm taking that's really great, I'm the minority in it, and I feel really uncomfortable and scared, so I'm just not going to go there anymore. And I'm not going to go to the store either because everybody in that store doesn't look like me, and oh God, can't buy my groceries. I don't think that, because if I thought that, I wouldn't really be able to live a productive life. And so that's where kind of like privilege comes in. That like my friends were always privileged not to ever have to think about that. To walk into most spaces and be a part of the majority and feel comfortable and not have to think, oh my God, am I going to say something? Am I going to look weird? Am I going to be like this? Whereas then on the other side of it, I've been so conditioned to think that I forgot, like, oh my God, I'm in this room and like majority of these people don't look like me. So I was like, sometimes you just kind of have to be bold. And this is an experience. You've spent your whole life learning so much about my culture from me. This is your chance to actually dive into my culture. And so I had some friends come through, and it was great. It was a great experience. So fast forward to MSUM. So I'm talking to the people that are organizing, and I shared that with them. I was like, they're scared. They're like really anxiously scared, especially when we talk about like events that pertain to race. I'm like, they feel like they're gonna step into this space and they're gonna be the bad guy, and they don't want to. Or they're gonna step into this space where they're the only one, and it's weird. And it's like flashback to like every Black History Month when your teacher was talking about something in Black history, and then everyone in my class would like kind of, and like that's that moment. Except now, like they can't look at each other for support. Like now they're like, oh my God, they're all looking at me like I'm the person. And so I'm like, that's what it is. And so I'm here to say, connection is scary. Like we're all like, we gotta connect. We're this big generation, especially our generation. We got social media. We got so many ways to connect, ways that our parents didn't have. They had to write letters and wait 30 days for their loved ones to hear back from them. We're sorry, we done better. So we have all these cool ways to connect with each other. Yet studies are showing that our generation is actually really bad with in-person connections. I'd rather shoot a text and say, yay, happy Martin Luther King's Day, than actually go to a Martin Luther King's event. And that's the problem. So I'm here to say connection is scary. And I really appreciate our last speaker because I feel like she touched on a lot of things that I'm kind of trying to convey tonight. Connection is really scary. Getting out of your own head, getting out of your own space, diving into something that's different from you, different from maybe everything you've learned, especially being up here in rural Minnesota. Like this, MSUM is so diverse for some of you guys. You're like, oh my gosh, I talked to like 3 kids today that came from like different countries, that came from Minneapolis. And it's like, what? You met a person from Minneapolis? Like, yeah. So like, you guys, you're here. You have the opportunity to learn and grow so much. And kind of like she said, you don't even have to go and pay like thousands of dollars to travel, which you should though, because it's lit out here in this world. But you don't have to pay all that money to travel and learn and grow about other people. You can do it right here. So I'm telling you, I'm saying, be scared, be nervous, be uncomfortable, be the only one in the space, but do it. Make connections. That's truly why we came to college. At the end of the day, if you want to get technical, unless you're like being like a science or doctor or something cool like that, a lot of the reason we came to college is to make connections so we could do what we want to do and learn from people who are doing what we want to do. So while you're here, like, bask in it, make those connections. And also, be okay with being wrong. You might show up to some of these events, and you might hear something that you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. I was told, like, that wasn't a thing, or my whole life I felt this way about this thing. And now you have an entirely new understanding of life, and that's growth, and that's learning. And again, I emphasize, that's why you're in college. So go ahead and make those connections. Be bold with them. Thank you for listening to me tonight.